We have about 400 companies. That's just equity companies. I think if you look where the JSE is going to go, from an equity perspective, you're going to be looking at far more African product. You're going to be looking at what we call exchange-traded products, exchange-traded funds and the like, people who are used to being in the public space. But I think it's quite important to sort of just stall for a moment the fact that it isn't a desire of ours to be in the 5,000 listed company space, because when you have too many companies that can't don't really buy into the disciplines that come with the public market, you can suffer quite a lot of reputational damage as the market. So we're very, very careful about the listings requirements that we apply to companies, and I'll talk a little bit about why that is so important to us and what that does for us as an emerging market in a few slides' time. If you look at the continent, you can remember the JSE, one of the world's top 20 exchanges. There are 24 exchanges on the continent, only 4 of which, ourselves, Mauritius, over there, Egypt and Casablanca, are members of the World Federation of Exchanges. So 24 other exchanges. It costs about 700 million rand to run the JSE every year. And we are just keeping a foothold in the global markets. So can you imagine the amount of revenue that you're going to have to generate in order to actually run an exchange of any size anywhere else on the continent? And for me, this is a very telling picture, because if we were to start to build the continent afresh and there were no exchanges, I don't think we would start with the concept of 24 exchanges. Every country has their own exchange, like a national airline. Far rather, we would find ways to partner with each other, and I'm very happy that we can talk about that if you want to during question time. The important part of that, though, translates into this graph. This is the same graph that we saw for the world stage. This is Africa. I mean, the African exchanges, unfortunately, do not even get off the liquidity axis. And this is important because when international investors want to invest, they invest in size. Average days trade on the JSE is more than the annual trade on Kenya and Mauritius taken together. So for an investor of any size to want to do a transaction of any size, they simply can't do it in their home markets. And we know, because you guys are very involved on the continent, you know that there are enormously successful companies on the continent. And even if they wanted to list in their home markets and trade only in their home markets are, for the moment, too small to handle those trades. So what happens to those companies? They trade over the counter. They don't list. They're private equity. They're owned by private equity. When the private equity guys want an exit, they'll either do that over the counter to another private equity house, or they'll go and list somewhere else. And this is that somewhere else space that we think we should have a role to play, but for which we compete quite heavily with London. So you can actually see that in the continent, we are most definitely the giant, the elephant on the continent. That brings with it some opportunities. It brings with it some challenges. But what it says about the continent is that there is every opportunity to grow. There is an opportunity for the continent to actually get the act together. People want to invest in emerging markets. International investors are looking for emerging market product. For those of you who were at the World Economic Forum, the energy there, I hear, was just amazing. The recent African World Economic Forum in Addis Ababa. The energy was just amazing. There are incredible things happening on the continent. Every reason why those companies should be able to be on a stock market. So these exchanges will grow in due course. But in order to grow, they're going to have to get with the picture of what it takes to be a competitive exchange. So for us, this is what it takes to be a competitive exchange. And today, the JSE holds for the second year in a row the best regulated financial market in the world. Better than London, better than New York, better than Hong Kong. That's quite an extraordinary thing for an emerging market, let alone an African emerging market. For the executives at the exchange, it's been a 15-year journey of looking at every element of what we do and saying, is it good enough? What do we have to do to be better? What's appropriate? We don't think that there is anything that is special about us on the continent or us as an emerging market that gives us any entitlement to say we don't need to do what global standards are. That's not to say that you have to slavishly follow, or in fact should slavishly follow, what happens globally, but you definitely have to understand that investors demand a certain standard, and you have to be able to offer that standard if you want to attract their attention. And if you're going to attract their attention, you will, by definition, attract the local attention. So we definitely have a view at the exchange that if we want to be part of the growth story in this country, part of the growth story on the continent, we have to be globally competitive. Now, if you were talking to other executives of exchanges around the world, they would have a different picture about their business model. For those of you that study exchange histories, you will know that there is, at the moment, a big debate about whether exchanges should be what's called horizontally and vertically integrated. All right. Horizontally integrated, this talks to the products that we provide to our clients. So equities, equity derivatives, commodity derivatives, and interest rate products. So we have, all those years ago, 1887, started out as an equities exchange. And over the years, we've grown product ranges, either by buying exchanges or building our own product ranges. Our strategy is to become the place of preference for the trading of African securities. So we would prefer people to look at us as the place they would like to trade all of these products, South African and other.